Hi everyone, Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. I hope you're well today. We are going to be talking about the difference between the INFJ type and the ENFJ type in this video. Hopefully it can be a quick one so that you can, retain what's important in a relatively short span of time. Hopefully I can be concise. Before I move on, just to remind you that I've actually written a book on the INFJ type, The Ecstatic Soul. It's a lovely book, less than $10, available down below in the description box, ebook and paperback format. Most in-depth investigation of the INFJ ever conducted. You help me, I'll help you, so consider it. Now, ENFJ and INFJ, not necessarily types that we immediately think of as types that might be confused. And yet, they should really be candidates for confusion, insofar as, in many respects, the ENFJ type is the closest to the INFJ type. They have the same cognitive functions, and the order, although it is different, is the same sequence, except that it's pushed down in the case of the ENFJ. So instead of having N-I-F-E, T-I-S-E, they have F-E, N-I, S-E, T-I. And you see, ENFJs and INFJs can sometimes be confused because it turns out, if what I'm saying in this book is correct, that a lot of INFJs that you will meet in real life, but also INFJs that you will meet online, can pass for FE dominance. This is a type or a subtype of INFJ that I see sometimes described misleadingly as an FE-SE subtype of INFJ. That doesn't really make any sense, because SE is always going to be in the inferior slot, regardless of the way you look at it. However, this idea of FE subtype INFJ is to some extent a reliable one, because, first of all, because it's not easy to convey NI in conversation with other people, in interactions with other people. It's not a function whose content easily lends itself to communication, and we already know this. But in addition to that, and again, I explore these themes in the first few chapters of The Ecstatic Soul, my book, it's not easy either from a social viewpoint for the INFJ to confront other people with those NI intuitions, because INFJs tend to seek harmony in a group of people. Again, this is something that we are familiar with. But if you're seeking harmony with a group of people, you're also always going to try to be seeking what connects you to other people. And there's a conflict between the seeking of connectedness with other people, this basic common denominator, and the uniqueness, the very, very singular uniqueness of NI and NI intuitions in any particular INFJ. So there's always going to be a pressure felt by the INFJ to play down the importance of their intuitions and to keep them in the background. This is what I call the evasive mode of INFJness, evading the consequences of having to confront the uniqueness of your NI, because you choose to prioritize harmony. In this way, you make yourself existentially dissatisfied. But the plus side is that in the immediate moment of concrete experience, things seem a little bit smoother, a little bit easier to deal with. People are easier to deal with. And that's what can make INFJs look like ENFJs. You see FE, you guess NI, but you don't really see NI dominating over FE. And if you've been interacting with a lot of INFJs in the past, again, online, offline, you'll have noticed that this is a trait that comes across a lot. Like in the majority of INFJs, I think this is what comes across. And if my hypothesis is correct, this is not due to the fact that the INFJ's NI is weak. It's really due, again, to this existential choice the INFJ makes to suppress their NI, to disguise their NI, to conceal their NI behind the harmonization that FE fulfills because it's socially easier to carry out. With ENFJs, by contrast, the FE dominance is their go-to. It's what makes them happy. Like an ENFJ is happy when they're able to exert their FE function unhindered in as many situations as possible. And NI here plays a supportive role, which, when it is supporting FE, logically takes a kind of background position. So it's normal in the case of the ENFJ that NI should not be as visible. You can sense it, you can guess it, in parts from the particular texture of their use of FE. The use of FE by an ENFJ versus, let's say, the use of FE in an ESFJ. ESFJ is also FE dominant, but they don't have that use of FE that is so in tune with people's motivations. There is something a little bit less forward-looking about the FE of ESFJs as well. So that sets them apart from ENFJs, and also from these fake ENFJs that are really NI-dominant INFJs who are suppressing at least the visible part of their NI intuitions. So one main difference that can help you figure out whether you're ENFJ or INFJ or someone else is ENFJ or INFJ is, do they seem happy? Do they seem content? Do they seem like they are satisfied and fulfilled in their life? Because it is not true that all introverts are incapable of expressing this kind of fulfillment, this kind of enjoyment out of life. Like, an introvert does not by definition repress how he expresses in this enjoyment of life as opposed to an extrovert. So you can tell, usually, if you know a person a little bit, you can tell, are they reasonably happy? Could they be happier? You'll notice that if an ENFJ is being themselves and them being very social, they're likely to be fulfilled. Whereas if the person's really an INFJ who's almost acting as if FE was their dominance, they're likely not to be fulfilled. So what you'll usually notice is that behind the layer of this attempted harmony and this this surrender to the mass of the social, the realm of the social, there is always going to be a layer of satisfaction. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll notice the INFJ has a lot of insecurities, and deep down it's typically linked to this original act of surrender, this original act of evasiveness. So typically, do they seem like they're comfortable in their shoes? That's one good indicator that the person is either ENFJ or INFJ. And the other one is another equally simple indicator is, how do they cope with social situations? Do they try to manifest their FE in situations that can be simultaneously as little draining to them as possible, online, for example, or in small group situations? Or are they quite happy to expand the perimeter of their FE function? And do they seem more energized than depleted by extensive social interactions? And here again, you'll notice that you can separate the true ENFJ from the evasive INFJ who's not showing you his NI as much as he or she would like to do. So basically, those are the two things. Do they seem happy and fulfilled in life? And how do they relate to the social facts as a whole? Do they embrace it, or are they very selective in relation to it? And that's really the main way that you can tell the difference. It's not necessarily a functional, difference. It's not primarily a distinction in function use in this case. It's more an existential difference. It's the theme that I explore in my book. Those existential factors that are, in some sense, foundational to the use of the cognitive functions. They come prior to the use of the cognitive functions. How does this person relate to the way they're leading their life? Fulfillment versus unfulfillment. It might sound like it's somewhat of a vague notion, but an incredible amount of information can be gleaned from that. And on these words, I'll say goodbye to you. I'll see you soon. Consider dropping a comment, giving me a like, and subscribing. Sure, why not? See you soon, guys. Take care.